Judge Dredd took an obnoxious yet wild turn with a Mega City Zero arc, a massive 12-issue collection. The story begins with Dredd coming to a world where Mega City 1 is history, swallowed by a sea of grass. The big question, what the heck happened to the city? Dredd's on a mission to figure it out and maybe hit the reset button. As Dredd digs into the mystery, he crosses paths with three young girls, Quill, Lolo and Iggy. He takes them from troublemakers to a makeshift family. This softer side of Dredd is something that we do not see quite often, so probably he has a heart under that badge and helmet. The girls who start off as none too fond of Dredd grow to care for him, even calling him Judge Dad. Oh, there's also a pug Dredd, the helmet-sporting pooch that completes this unconventional family. Mega City Zero isn't just about the big mystery, it's chock full of mini-adventures tackling everything from grammar snobs to a men's rights matrix. Dredd's never been shy about social commentary, and this follows suit. So welcome to Mega City Zero, where the Stone Age meets the Lawman. Let's begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Terms of service. Fresh breeze and clean air never kissed Mega City 1. All that the city lived and breathed within were pollution, loud honks by cars stuck in traffic, and hordes of people crowding the streets of Judge Dredd's infamous giant city. But something had happened. Judge Dredd had suddenly found himself in a place that was lush green with hardly any humans when compared to Mega City 1. Dredd found himself all alone in this strange locale. After waking up from his slumber, he immediately contacted Control, but of course there was no response. The protocol for the Mega City 1 judges was quite simple: survive, evaluate, enforce. You could think of it as something similar to the prime directives of RoboCop. Judge Dredd checked his gun, the lawgiver, only to learn that he was pretty low on ammunition. He had 45 rounds left, of which 25 were standard execution, 4 high explosives, 5 armor-piercing, 7 ricochets, and 4 incendiary. So yeah, he knew that he had to ration his ammunition. He then tested himself for drugs and found that he was clean, which meant that whatever he was seeing was pretty real. Furthermore, his portable computer informed him that he was still in Mega City 1. But this much vegetation and almost no vehicles or humans, it confused our fearsome judge. Struggling to make sense of the situation, Judge Dredd looked into the last recorded case log. The video log was from Mega City 1 from the year 2324. The judge had received a call from Control to investigate a mass disappearance in the Angela Davis block. This was one of the several mass disappearances that had taken place in recent times, and the total count of gone citizens now stood at 13,450. Multiple judges were at the scene, including Dredd and Side Judge Anderson, but even she was unable to pick up any psychic footprints. Additionally, they found out that Control had gone silent. Clearly, something was up. Just as the log ended, Judge Dredd noticed 3 kids assaulting someone that they claimed kicked a puppy. Dredd pulled the kids away. In fact, one of the kids wanted to squeeze out the puppy kicker's eyeballs. Nevertheless, the perp went a bit too far by asking Dredd for the gun so that he could shoot the kids himself. Dredd couldn't handle such behavior and sentenced the man to death by shooting him in the head. The girl named Quill could not resist extracting the eyeball from the dead man, so Dredd arrested her and also sentenced Iggy and Lolo to a 2-year sentence. But the issue was, where would Judge Dredd take the kids after making the arrests? He had no idea where the nearest mega block or the ISO cubes were. But something else caught Dredd's attention. A mob of strange humanoid creatures and humans was rushing towards the kids and Dredd. This mob, called the Herd by the kids, was rushing towards a giant structure called the Ang-Avi. Now Dredd found this strange because it looked like a mega block, but there was no mega city. At this point, it seemed like the entrance into Ang-Avi was something very important to the denizens of this strange land. But access to Ang-Avi had been denied because of violations of the terms of certain services. Unlike Mega City 1, this region was managed by robo-judges who ripped an important conversation leader into 2 parts. The next thing we know, water started filling the whole place, which forced everyone to evacuate immediately. Dredd believed that he would find a holding cell inside Ang-Avi where he could put the kids, but the robo-judges would not let him in. Interestingly, the HUD of the robo-judges displayed the name Magruder, who some of you may know was the first ever female Chief Justice and the only person to be twice appointed to the position of Chief Justice. Anyway, the robo-judges perceived Dredd as a threat, so he did exactly what a good old judge does best when faced with an adversary. He shoots the dilapidated pieces of metal in their rusty heads. However, one of the gatekeepers was still active and kicking. Dredd shot him with his high X round, but this guy was more formidable. A long fight sequence ensued, but Dredd managed to take down the robo-judge. He then turned to the kids, with whom he was a bit more considerate now. With their help, Judge Dredd found a secret passage into Ang-Avi. It is soon revealed that humanity had stopped counting years, and year after year it was always year zero. So by that logic, this was Mega City Zero. He ventured further into Ang-Avi and learned that the entire Angela Davis block was down here, but of course not in the way he remembered it. This version of the Angela Davis block is nightmarish, filled with internet fandom, slang and references. What was happening? Well, I don't want to spoil the surprise, so let's just say that your guess is as good as mine. There are a couple of issues to tackle here. First off, the comic mentions a mega block, but it's actually referring to a city block. Another problem is how Dredd is portrayed. He seems more like a special constable than a judge. You get the lines like, "Now what are your names? Do your parents know you're out?" From the Iron Man of Mega City lore. The one funny bit is when Dredd is referred to as Judge Dad. Flame Wars. Here the issue seems to have a peculiar fixation on puppy kicking as a preferred punishment for various problems, which is rather disturbing. It's like Dredd himself is perpetually bewildered, making it hard to make sense of the narrative in the vein of Heroes Reborn. Dredd doesn't even have a username. Yes, everyone in Mega City Zero has a username and an access code, but he somehow becomes a sort of a sensation, despite people initially assuming he's a trog, and efforts by a cis-op to shut him down, his popularity spreads, and he inspires a series of costumes. Trogs, it appears, are some seriously judgmental folks who should be avoided. They are denizens of Mega City Zero who want to give everyone real freedom, including the freedom to commit any and all sorts of crime. They want to remove all sorts of authorities who might stop people from doing what they want to do. It turns out that people we saw in the earlier issue who wanted to get inside the Mega block had formerly been working for the authorities, so they were banished and sent to the grasslands. This whole scenario feels like a metaphor for a forum or a Reddit page where people are discussing political issues. The most disconcerting part is the line, "When I put this costume on, I'm going to law you so hard," which might not be everyone's cup of tea. I mean, yes, this might be straight out of the household of someone like Johnny Sins, but do we really need this stuff in a Dredd comic? Finally, Dredd reveals himself to Lodi, a trog whom he is teamed up with. Dressed up as Judge Trog, they try to rescue the girls. There's a brief exchange of ideas on the right way to proceed, but then Trog shoots Dredd before pumping out like the Hulk, without any explanation whatsoever. It's just presented as standard storytelling, and we are somehow expected to go along with it and whisper words like genius and groundbreaking non sequitur narrative. As the comic ends, the Trog, however, meets a fiery end, which should be unsurvivable. Once more, Dredd is behaving oddly and not taking command as expected. He is just meandering from one situation to another without making much of an effort. That's not the Dredd we are used to. Well, except for that one instance when he kicks a guy where it hurts. That's the Dredd we know. The art is decent, featuring some graphic scenes when Dredd deals with a perp. However, when Judge Trog vanishes, there's some inconsistency with his size from panel to panel, further diminishing the already unsatisfying story. Dan McDade's artwork in this comic has a gritty, rough quality that effectively portrays the bleak and dystopian world of Judge Dredd. However, there is a drawback in some of the panels, as they can come across as overly busy, almost overwhelming at times. This complexity can make it challenging to follow certain key plot points, like when Dredd's 3 young prisoners attempt to escape. There are also some issues with the action shots. In one scene, when Dredd headshots someone, McDade's depiction with a red blotch replacing the head doesn't quite hit the mark. To make matters worse, a grey stream of smoke is added, but it doesn't convey the impact as it should. The feeding of the Trogs. In this perplexing and chaotic world, where individuals do as they please, including kicking puppies without a second thought, there are emergency services that make an appearance and secure the scene. Somehow, Dredd and his 3 charges manage to free themselves from the riot foam, but the comic doesn't quite get into the how. Dredd, who appears to have made a remarkable recovery from his previously injured arm, engages in a conversation with a person with a chicken head. He is then called to the arena for a gladiatorial battle, clad in minimal attire. It's worth noting that the Statue of Liberty has been transplanted from the central sectors to this location, though the reason for this relocation is also not explained. Now, the most important part of the story. Judge Trog survives the explosion of the coolant tanks from the previous issue and undergoes another transformation. Yet again, the specifics of this change are left unexplained. Dredd tries to talk Trog into submission. When this fails, the most legitimate method of dispute resolution is resorted to: physical combat. It is now that we learn how exactly the Trogs get fed. You see, the more you disagree with them, the stronger and stupider they become. But if you agree with them, they simply become docile. You see, this is a metaphor for internet trolls, which calmed him down. Following Trog's second death, Dredd is met by Mechanismo units summoned to manage the crowd. One intriguing aspect is that usernames are claimed, and when it is revealed that the girls lack them, they are unceremoniously expelled back to the grass. The girls, facing danger, decide to retaliate against their attacker, and Quill returns to her eye-stealing adventures. The concept of time in the story is also quite hazy, as Dredd changes into a tracksuit and is granted the freedom to act as he pleases as long as he refrains from instructing others. Rather than exiting through the main gate, he opts to pursue the girls through the Undercity. However, before going on this mission, he creates his own armor. Interestingly, the database he accesses lacks any records of the Big Meg. You'll get to know who this character is. It's a challenge to pinpoint anything of significance in this tale so far. Events take place without apparent reason and with minimal explanation. While it is not a requirement, clarity can significantly aid in coherent storytelling. So essentially, the odds continue to stack against Dredd, both physically and psychologically. He faces one of the toughest challenges in his long history. How can he be something that no longer exists? This intricate dilemma gravely pronounces the complexity of his mission. Over the years, Dredd has encountered numerous perils, but this one stands out as particularly formidable. The introduction of the feral girls, much like pairing him with Judge Anderson, allows Dredd to maintain his unwavering badass persona, while they bring forth emotions and sensible reactions to the situations. These young girls are well-defined and not just some one-dimensional characters. Dredd's goals are firmly established, but the methods he could use become increasingly blurred. While it's evident that the overall story and Dredd seek to uncover the truth about Mega City 1, this issue leans more towards addressing immediate challenges. Dredd's stripped-down appearance sans his uniform further adds to his vulnerability and wounds. Having said that, the artwork in this issue appears somewhat scrappier. Although the arena scenes are well executed, they don't quite align with the standard aesthetic we are accustomed to in terms of uniformity and setting. The Forum. Imagine if you took a tribesman from an isolated South Pacific island, subjected him to 72 hours of sleep deprivation and fear, and then handed him an English typewriter with a gun pointed at his head, forcing him to write a story. The resulting gibberish would still be more coherent than this Dredd story, and that's a problem. The comic starts with a heavy question. If Mega City 1 is no more, is Dredd still a judge? It's a fundamental query that could redefine Dredd's character in a unique way. He was born a judge, and he'll likely die as one, but the title's significance depends on the culture that spawned it. When that culture is gone, what remains of the man? The comic briefly touches on this existential mystery, but quickly dismisses it, opting for a different type of story. Rather than embarking on an exploration of uncertain waters with an inquisitive heart, our creators stay in the shallows and settle for mediocrity. In terms of layout, the alternate page setup works exceptionally well, cleverly tracking Dredd's progress alongside Lolo's until both storylines converge. The descent into the Undercity is depicted effectively with darkened pages, and the use of stones to gauge the distance to the ground adds a nice touch. The story takes a dark turn as Iggy, Quill and Lolo encounter a creepy old man who reveals that they work for a sinister organization. While it's not a surprising twist, it adds a layer of danger to the plot. Fortunately, Lolo's appearance saves her from being a victim, and she is left behind to advance the story. A massive Mechanismo unit guards the gate, preventing Lolo from entering the city. However, plot convenience comes to the rescue in the form of a flash flood that washes her into the underblock. In the depths of the block, Dredd's battery torch fails, prompting him to improvise a new one using an incendiary round. He stumbles upon a group of trogs, bizarre creatures resembling a mix of Dr. Zoidberg and Lady Gaga. Dredd's heroics include saving a puppy, which proves handy in later panels. The story takes yet another obnoxious and mysterious turn when Dredd encounters Forum Custodial Services, expecting him and a fellow judge, Judge Berger. Dredd initially mistakes Berger for Anderson, but it's actually Judge Berger covered in grass. However, without any explanation, Berger dies, leaving Dredd bewildered. He obtains coordinates from Berger's pad, but doesn't delve into the implications of there being more judges. While Dredd inexplicably finds himself trapped in the FCS, Lolo produces the helmet from earlier, now worn by the dog, who is dubbed Judge Pug. Dredd's response is simple: "Oh, come on." This exchange highlights the writer's struggle to capture Dredd's character consistently. To add to the confusion, Lolo mentions that Dredd is not the only judge, but Dredd quickly moves past this revelation. The story ends with more letters of praise, leaving readers with a sense of bewilderment. Overall, this installment continues to disappoint, with inconsistent character portrayals and a plot that raises more questions than answers. This issue of Judge Dredd delves into the discomfort and unfamiliar territory experienced by the characters. Lolo, known for her street smarts, trusts a mysterious figure, leading to the kidnapping of her friends. Dredd himself finds his comfort zone obliterated. He roams through a tower block that bears some familiarity but is largely uncharted territory. Without the lifeline of communication with Control, which is typically available to all judges on patrol, he is isolated. Furthermore, he enters the unknown with no foreknowledge of the threats he will encounter. In the past, he often had some inkling of the types of criminals he'd face, but this time he is entirely clueless. User not found. #user not found. Under the night sky, Lola and Dredd were talking. She wasn't just playing the tough big sis, she genuinely felt ready to step up. Dredd, the law in this chaos, was with her but struggling. No Z's for days, his brain was getting mushy, and his tech buddy Mac was giving him the silent treatment. Bad news when you're on a mission to save kids. There in the shadow of the block, a grim reminder of what used to be a bustling place, now a ghost of its former self. And there, Lolo and Dredd hunkered down, ready to take on the world to bring Iggy and Quill home. Lolo's plea for attention goes unheard as Dredd grapples with his own battle to stay awake, haunted by the duty he feels to this lawless world. Lolo's insistence on rescuing her sisters is met with a resigned fine from the weary judge. Flashback to Mega City 1, where Dredd's past unfolds. Judges debate the effectiveness of their iron-fisted methods amidst rising crime. A young judge challenges the status quo, citing data and calling for change, but gets brushed off by the veterans. They wear their cynicism like armor, mocking the naive optimism with a snort. The scene shifts to a grim discovery of multiple suicides in a city block, but there's a catch. It's murder masked as self-harm, linked to a drug called the Green. Dredd and his team are on the hunt for the source, cutting through the city's underbelly. They corner a suspect, a small-time player in the drug game. The perp spills. It was all a setup, drugs given away to stir chaos for someone else's gain. Dredd's focus is razor-sharp. He's got no time for distractions, only justice. But even in the midst of interrogation, something stirs in Dredd's mind. A lapse, a call for focus. The memory is a stark reminder of his purpose and the cost of inattention in the fight against crime. After letting Dredd snatch a quick 30-minute nap, Lolo's patience wears thin. She's ready to belt out some tunes, much to Dredd's chagrin. Lolo's not shy about it. She's got spunk and a song for every moment, even if it's just her take on nursery rhymes. The tension's high. Dredd's all about the mission, telling Lolo they need to get their act together. Lolo's trying to keep spirits up, but she's also got a point to drive home. She's adamant they're a family now, despite Dredd's tough exterior. He's not about to admit it, but even his resolve cracks when Lolo insists on the importance of their bond. Finally, they're on the same page. Kind of. Dredd promises to find Lolo's sisters when he wakes, but right now he's got to rest, and she's on watch. Lolo's up for the task, even excited at the thought of guarding like Judge Baby. Dredd's still a judge at heart, giving Lolo a survival tip before dozing off: how to handle threats with a sharpened stick. They are a team, even if family is too strong a word for now. As the night draws on, Lolo stands guard by the fire, a sentinel in the quiet wilds of Mega City Zero. Back in Mega City 1, Judge Dredd remembers that he was knee-deep in a case that's going nowhere fast. The trail's gone cold on a drug called the Grimm. Despite tracking its production across the city, the pieces aren't fitting together. They've made no arrests, and the only guy they've nabbed is for something unrelated. The judges are scratching their heads, especially when Berger, the stats whiz, starts spouting off about network blackouts and untraceable data surges. It's tech-heavy and over Dredd's head, but it points to a smart drug that's spreading through the city like wildfire. Berger's convinced it's the future, but Dredd, not so much. Meanwhile, Dredd's trying to keep his own head in the game. He is back in Mega City Zero, and it's a whole different kind of wild. No backup, no ammo, just him, Lolo, and a dog against a band of nutjobs. Lolo's scared but fierce, swinging sticks and taking names. Dredd's impressed, even if he won't say it. They're on the run now, and Dredd's starting to piece together the memories that brought him here. It's just them against the world, and they've got a long night ahead. Back in Mega City 1, it was a full-blown crisis. People are vanishing left and right, and the counts hit over 13,000. Judge Berger is crunching numbers and finding patterns in the disappearances. The judges, including Dredd, are on the edge. Every judge has to be field ready, but Berger's hesitant, feeling out of his depth away from his desk. They are piecing together that the missing folks are all linked to the same spots in the city. It's a puzzle that got them stumped, with Berger suggesting it might be a biological attack. Meanwhile, the command center goes quiet, communications down, and it's got everyone on high alert. Back in Mega City Zero, Dredd's in a bad spot. Communications are spotty, he's lost touch with his team, and the green is causing chaos. Anderson, his psychic colleague, gets a hit of the stuff and starts spewing out some strange spiel about unity. Dredd's frustration is palpable. He's shouting for Anderson, who's out cold, and it looks like she's in for a rough ride. Not all men. In Mega City 1, things had taken a weird turn. Judge Dredd, our tough-as-nails lawman, is greeted by a grandpa-looking fella who claims Dredd doesn't remember him. This grandpa guy is all smiles, but he's really the one in charge here. He's running a place that's like a virtual reality, a fraternal city where men can escape and live out their fantasies without being judged. Dredd is skeptical, to say the least. He meets this grandpa's crew, a bunch of yes-men who just go along with everything. Grandpa boasts about how he's got this whole setup wired straight to his brain, making him a god amongst men. All this is happening while Dredd's just trying to figure out what's going on. Grandpa reveals that Dredd agreed to this whole thing because he couldn't handle the real Mega City 1 anymore. But Dredd, being Dredd, isn't having any of it. They argue, with Grandpa trying to convince Dredd that he's better off here, away from the harsh reality of the real city. It gets intense. Grandpa's got some serious disdain for women, thinking they're all a distraction, and he's creating this place to get away from what he calls the dirty races and underboob. He's got a creepy vibe, talking about taking care of girls and making sure everyone stays in line. But Judge Dredd is determined to bring justice, no matter how bizarre things get. Grandpa hints that he's messed with Dredd's mind, but our judge is too stubborn for that. There's a showdown brewing, and it's clear that Dredd's not going to play along with this twisted fantasy world. 6 months later, a man is found dead on the street, and Dredd is told to unplug from a system that's glitching. It's the third such incident that month, hinting at a deeper problem. Dredd confronts the man responsible, who's hooked up to machines, with Dredd asserting his control and disdain for the perverted escapism the man fosters. protesters. The man in the chair taunts Dredd, offering him the chance to leave but also threatening the safety of the girls if he acts out. Dredd is internally conflicted, sensing something is off. He has flashes of memory about the law and a blinding light but can't put it all together. A panel shows women seemingly brainwashed, causing a commotion. Dredd and the other officers try to manage the situation, with Dredd insisting the women aren't to blame. The man in the chair mocks the chaos, enjoying the power he has over this warped version of reality. Dredd's resilience is tested as bullets prove ineffective against him, and he's reminded of an agreement that seems to protect him from harm. The man in the chair tries to force Dredd to turn a gun on himself, leveraging the safety of the girls against him. Finally, Dredd is confronted with the illusion of a family, and it's suggested that his mind has been tampered with, his memories and realities manipulated. In a fight, Dredd faces off against the man, who is confident in his control, but Dredd's determination shines as he fights to wake up from this controlled world. Dredd is coerced under threat to take the lives of 3 girls, one of whom pleads with him not to comply. Despite their pleas, a shot rings out, but it's not Dredd who has fallen. It's one of the girls, Iggy. The girls are in disbelief, questioning the reality of her death, wondering if it's all just virtual. Dredd, unsure himself, can only confirm that this is the harsh reality. Dredd is then confronted with his own office, overgrown and abandoned. A computer screen echoes his thoughts. There are no more laws, and everyone is innocent again, suggesting a society that has somehow reset itself. Dredd declares it a utopia, but the illusion shatters as Dredd finds himself back in a facility with people emerging from pods, reminiscent of the virtual reality he's been fighting against. One of the girls accuses him of failing to protect them, and the man he's been up against coughs, weakly calling them meddling kids. The showdown continues with the man revealing he wiped part of Dredd's brain, which was causing system crashes and resulted in multiple murders. Dredd is told he'll pay with years of imprisonment for his crimes, but Dredd retorts, attacking the man's brain with a device, causing a destructive explosion. Amid the chaos, Dredd is told that the brains, the women, and the children have been disconnected, and that his body will rot while his brain remains connected to the virtual world. Dredd rejects the bleak outcome, determined not to let that be his end. In the final moments, Dredd, surrounded by what appears to be the specters of the past, reflects on the cost of the law. He acknowledges that it wasn't worth the 800 million lives lost, nor the life of Iggy, the girl who died. It's a moment of realization and regret for Dredd, questioning the value of the strict enforcement of the law. Dredd and the girls managed to escape the misogynist virtual reality, but at the cost of Iggy's life. Grammar Nazis. Dredd's tale continues as he encounters a group of survivors in the wasteland. A man, Charles, offers him and the girls food, shelter and safety. However, Dredd and his companions, Lolo, Quill and a pug named Dredd, are wary. They question Charles's intentions, especially when he reveals his personal security drone, Jury 1, suggesting it's a standard issue for everyone in his refuge. The group decides to keep moving, ignoring Charles's plea for friendship, signaling their mistrust. Charles attempts to entice them with the promise of a refuge that embraces equality, but his mannerisms and the phrase able bodies raise alarms, hinting at something more sinister. Their path leads them to the outskirts of a place called the Refuge. Lolo, Quill and the others debate the risk of accepting help from Charles and his community. A decision is made to check out the refuge themselves, staying cautious and unnoticed. Inside the refuge, they overhear a conversation about assimilation and a new approach to it. This confirms their suspicion that the refuge's motive are questionable. They are struck by the sight of the community, a seemingly thriving hub amid the destruction, but are quickly thrown into danger as they are spotted. A man named Berger becomes hostile upon hearing them use his name, revealing a different meaning to him. It represents those lost in the world. Dredd realizes the gravity of the situation and the potential threat to the group. However, Charles insists that Berger is a guide destined to take them home. Charles insists that Berger is a guide destined to take them home. Dredd and the girls find themselves in a standoff, and their leader insists on forced peace and security, but the methods of bringing such peace are rather unsettling. He tries to convince them of his refuge's benefits, stating that if they don't follow the rules and respect warnings, they are free to leave, though it's implied that this isn't encouraged, and shall have consequences. Dredd's group remains skeptical. They are not interested in what the man and his drones are offering, sensing something off about the so-called safety and equality. The old man, attempting to enforce his rules, talks about re-assimilation and gives a veiled threat of punishment for non-compliance, which he demonstrates by activating a drone against a young boy for a minor infraction. When the man tries to control the situation, Dredd and the girls resist, showing that they aren't intimidated by the drones or the old man's authority. A probation period is mentioned as a way to get them assimilated, but Dredd and his group have no intention of staying. They plan to keep moving, unwilling to be part of a community that feels more like a controlled cult than a sanctuary. Berger then makes an offer to Lolo, holding out what looks like a pie. He's trying to be hospitable, maybe trying to show that he's not bad at all. But there's tension, as Lolo isn't too keen on taking what's offered. The story takes a turn when Lolo is deep in thought, reflecting on past hardships and the absence of Iggy. There's regret in her voice, a sense of loss for Iggy, and a wish that Iggy could have seen the place they found. Meanwhile, Quill dismisses Lolo's sentimentality, ready to move on and find Dredd. In the next panel, Lolo takes on a tough persona, bloodied and proclaiming to be the new law. A bold statement of rebellion, a claim to power in a world that's come undone. She had killed Berger in cold blood. In the aftermath of chaos, Lolo finds herself in a place where law and family intertwine, where memories of old laws clash with the need for new rules to survive. Her defiance is clear. No one will touch her or her family again. Lolo's been tied up. Her violent outburst against perceived threats from the people of the refuge, whom she likens to the oppressive yes-men of her past, brought this on. Charles, attempting to be a peacemaker, tries to reason with everyone. He speaks of law, family, and the sanctuary they've created in a world stripped of order. But his words are lost in the heat of the moment. Lolo feels betrayed, thinking the others are trying to trick her, just like the yes-men she despises. The tension escalates as a figure named Dredd steps in to silence the brewing storm. Accusations fly, murder, lies, oppression. Lolo feels justified in her actions, seeing herself as the law, but her methods have sown discord. Dredd brings a momentary peace, but the air remains charged, a balance between understanding Lolo's pain and condemning her methods. As the dust settles, Lolo's internal struggle comes to light. She admits her desire to hurt those who wronged her, a raw and unfiltered truth of someone who's seen the darkness of humanity and fought to find her place in it. In the end, Dredd's world's gone sideways, and he's holed up in a village where folks aren't too keen on Lolo since she's committed the murder. They're calling her a killer. So Dredd, not one for sticking around when things get dicey, packs up with Lolo, her sister Quill, and their dog, Pug Dredd, and they hit the road. They're soon up against some venom-looking creature and a bunch of folks dolled up like the Dark Judges. But they're just regular Joes and Janes in costumes, jabbing kids with some essence of the real Dark Judges to fend off the grass. Fast forward a bit, and Dredd and Quill are saying goodbye to poor Pug Dredd and slashing their way through overgrowth to find the old Grand Hall of Justice. But Quill dashes off, and bam, she's smack in the middle of the real Megacity 1. She's dazed and confused, and the local judges think she's got future shock syndrome until Judge Lolo swoops in. Lolo's big cheese here, a top judge with a statue and all. She's talking up a storm about how she's fixed everything, even found their missing sister, Iggy. Back in the wilds, Dredd's cut off. No access server, no backup. Desperate, he takes a hit of this pollen and winds up in Lolo's version of Megacity 1, the misogynist one. He's trying to snap her out of this dreamland, saying Iggy ain't dead, but Lolo's not buying it. Then Berger shows up, still alive, despite Dredd thinking Berger was a goner. Now Berger's throwing blame, claiming to have cleaned up the streets, made everything peachy. To show off her peaceful city, she even hauls in some notorious bad guys. Meanwhile, Dredd's trying to get Quill on his side, but she's not budging, too loyal to her sisters. So it's down to Dredd to face off with Berger, mano a mano, to sort out this mess. In the end, Berger somehow transforms into a giant T-Rex-like creature, and Dredd strikes the creature's jaws, severing it, which is when Berger comes back to her human form. It's all pretty weird. Anyway, the only good thing about this comic was that it led to the creation of the story arc called Blessed Earth, which takes 10 years from the events of Mega City Zero. As Dredd grapples with the heavy questions about law enforcement and his role in the city's ills, we are nudged to think about our real world in the same way. It's a thought-provoking and sometimes unsettling ride, but that's what good sci-fi does best. It doesn't need flashy space wars to make a point. It just needs real, flawed characters in situations that aren't too far off from our potential future. Marvelous verdict. The dozen issues of Judge Dredd have shaken things up, given an old-school character a new-school twist, and this finale is no exception. But, of course, there were several daunting flaws. Writers Ulises Farinas and Eric Freitas have been gusty with their storytelling, taking Dredd, a typically one-note tough guy, and throwing him into situations that have him and us seeing things from a whole new perspective. This isn't your everyday Dredd. This is Dredd with depth. He is also out of character. He is forced to face the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he is part of the problem in Mega City 1. Art-wise, Dan McDade has been nailing it issue after issue, but there is this one page in particular that's a total standout. Credit also to colorist Ryan Hill for the series' visuals. There is a sequence with a tear falling that's just packed with meaning, showing the impact of misguided actions in a single powerful image. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.